What's the relationship between personal identity, personhood, and the self?
Well, um, uh, so I don't know exactly where to start, but so all animals, matter of fact, any creature that is any cellular creature on Earth does what some of us call harnessing information, which is a very simple idea. To start with a mousetrap, an old-fashioned mousetrap. Uh, so there's a little pedal. You put cheese on it, it goes down, and the thing snaps and kills the mouse. So that's a very important kind of design. So you have the pedal going up and down carries the information that there's a mouse there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it only carries that information relative to a lot of assumptions. Right? If you get an old-fashioned mousetrap, put cheese on it, put it in the middle of the living room floor, that won't carry the information that there's a mouse there, or at least it won't make it terribly probable. It's more likely to be my toe in the middle of the night. But if you're careful and you put the mousetrap between the refrigerator and the wall, then it's very probable that if it goes up and down, far enough in that your cat can't get it, then if it goes up and down, very probable it carries the information there's a mouse in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes things on the what we might call the inside of the mousetrap, right? This goes down. This little lever is loose. It's what was holding the spring. So the spring goes whap.
Right.
So what we have is a mechanism that has information about the world around it due to being in various states that it goes into. And those states, in turn, cause it to do something that benefits it. Except, of course, the mousetrap doesn't give a shit whether it kills a mouse or not. But the owner had a value that is enhanced by its working that way. Anyway, so Fred Retzky's favorite example was the what he called a magnetosome, which isn't quite the right title for it, but it's what he had in mind was a creature that lives in the ocean, and particularly in the northern Atlantic, and it's got a built-in magnet.
I know these creatures.
You do?
Yeah.
How do you know them?
I don't know where I read about them.
Yeah.
It might have been in some. I was into evolutionary biology
Yeah.
for a while,
Okay.
so it
Yeah.
might they just have this fascinating adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah. So they are. So these creatures can't take much oxygen. So when the magnet inside them points at magnetic north, and they're in the Atlantic, most of the northern Atlantic, if they swim in that direction, they will go deeper into the ocean because of the curvature of the Earth.
Hmm.
So by swimming in that direction, which they do automatically, they do something that is a benefit to them, not really, but broadly speaking, right? It helps their survival because they go deeper in the ocean, less oxygen-rich waters, they survive. Now, of course, the magnesium, no evidence that they care about survival. So we kind of have to personify nature to find someone who cares whether magnetosomes survive or not. Mother Nature seems to want everything to survive long enough to spawn some more things. But the point is that basic mechanism of having a state that contains information about the outside world and that causes a movement or a change that benefits the organism or somebody else involved, like Mother Nature, or the owner of the mousetrap, is a very powerful one. And we just see it all the way up, including human beings, of course. We've taken it to. I mean, your cat works that way, right? she she sees them anyway. So harnessing information now. So our internal states are very important. Now humans, and I assume mammals and lots of animals, but probably not magnetosomes, maybe snails, pretty surely frogs, have something like consciousness. It's like something to be a hungry frog, I assume. I'm sure it's like something to be a hungry cat. And no. Okay, keep that in mind. Now I'm going to change. Ernst Mach was a famous physicist.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up.
Huh?
I was going to bring him up.
Okay, so he gets on the bus and he sees a fellow in the mirror at the other end of the bus, and he says, "What a shabby pedagogue that guy is." But it was himself in the mirror. Okay, so he had two conceptions, or we say. So he saw himself, perceived himself, formed opinions about himself, that is, about the person who he in fact was, but he didn't realize that, as we would say, that was he himself.
Right.
But now consider having a headache. You don't make that kind of mistake with headaches. I mean, if you have a headache, you know whose headache it is. It's yours. So do you have a little file in your mind for Robinson, and then when you have a headache, you realize that it's that person that has a headache? Well, in a way you do, but that's kind of beside the point, because that's a pretty late development. But a kid just out of the womb feels hunger. It knows, in some sense, who has to suck on the nipple to relieve that hunger. I mean, not in any conceptual sense, but
right.
That is self-knowledge, right? So basic self-knowledge is not knowledge that a certain person has a certain, certain attribute. It's just awareness of an attribute in the way that one is only aware of one's own attributes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that going on before you really develop a concept. I mean, kids, humans can pass the mirror test at about 2 years of age, and once that'd be a good thing to write a dissertation about, a mirror test, by the way. Once get a lot of experimental stuff, a lot of psychologists saying things, but philosophers could clean it up. So once a kid passes the mirror test, and they kind of realize that they are one of a group that have similar attributes, but they don't confuse the attributes that they know to be theirs automatically, like whether they need to pee or throw up, or whether they're hungry or so forth, with the ones that aren't like that, like whether tall, skinny, ugly, so forth and so on. So I think basic self-knowledge is just the knowledge that you have of your own inner states, and not just introspection, which is kind of sophisticated, but interoception, and what's another thing they call? Anyway, there's
Proprioception.
Huh?
Proprioception.
Proprioception. Yeah, that's actually know whether your legs are crossed. So that's kind of an interesting. So I think that's the basis of self-knowledge. It is yourself, the person you are, is the person you know about in what I call self-informative ways. Automatically self-informative or intrinsically self-informative. And they're also self-affecting actions. So, for example, that's a way that we all would use to scratch our nose and raise our hand. And if I raise someone's hand in the way I just raised my hand, it's my hand I've raised,
Mm-hmm.
right? Presumably, raising the hand or scratching the nose for you, you do it in just the same way I do, but you can't scratch another person's nose that way, right? So I think our basic self
That's
concept
interesting.
is so you go back to Descartes. Hume too, but I'll put Descartes before the Hume. That's a joke.
Yeah. Major philosophy joke.
Yes. Well, anyway, so so Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," and not everybody was convinced. They say, "Who wasn't convinced?" Well, oh shit, some important people whose names will come to me, but they say, "Well, no, I mean, you have experiences, you have ideas, so you know those experiences and ideas exist, but you don't have any experience of something further, the I, the self, that has those ideas and experiences. So you really weren't in a position to say, I think, therefore I exist. You were just in a position to say, thinking goes on."
Mm-hmm.
And nothing follows from that about you. It just follows that there are some ideas. And Hume kind of had this, into the same thing. He says, but forget about Hume. So I think those critics were right. Who the hell am I thinking of? I don't know. Foucault, maybe, but I doubt it. So that the primitive self-knowledge is not, so to speak, knowledge about a person, although it is knowledge about a person. So, did you tell me you raised chickens? No, that was somebody else.
No, that was not me.
Okay, so take a chicken. Chicken is out in the, maybe you read all my stuff about chicken. I don't know. So a chicken's in the barnyard, it sees a kernel of corn in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
The chicken walks forward, pecks. As a result of pecking, it gets nutrition. So that's harnessing information. Did the chicken realize that the kernel was in front of it? Well, no, I would say. It just saw a kernel and it didn't need to know. Chickens don't pass the mirror test. It didn't need to realize. But we as theorists, when we look at the chicken, we need to say, no, that each chicken knows. I mean, how do we explain the success of the chickens harnessing information? Well, we have to say the kernel that is in front of a given chicken is the same kernel that same chicken will peck, and the chicken that gets nourished thereby is the same chicken that does the seeing and pecking. So we as theorists need the notion of chicken identity. But I should say hen. Why should I say? I don't know. But the hen doesn't really need it, and in other words, they don't need to realize that they can think of themselves and the information they have of themselves in the same way they think of other chickens, right? A chicken will see another chicken, or a rooster will see a chicken with a kernel in front of it, and it will realize that chicken has a kernel in front of it. And then it will look at the chicken, decide how big it is. If it's not too big, it'll go chase it away and eat the kernel itself. But the rooster or the chicken don't need to think of themselves having a kernel in front of them as a special case of what they see when they see another chicken having a kernel in front of them. When do you start to need that? Well, I don't know, somewhere before you go to graduate school in philosophy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So self-knowledge, it starts off with what I call primitive self-knowledge. That is, primitive self-knowledge, self-affecting, self-informative states that carry information about the very individual that has them, and self-affecting actions. And the self-affecting states lead to the self-affecting actions. So our concept of a person grows out of that one, and so we do have, eventually we do form something like a filing cabinet in our mind where we have little file folders for different things and different people. Just not a serious theory. I don't think we have manila folders in our heads, but and eventually we have one of those for ourselves, and we put the stuff we pick up in self-informative ways in that file. But it's not required to be in a file to do important work. Remember? Well, I don't know if you would remember. Maybe you were too young. But George W. Bush once gave a talk in the Middle East during one of the wars he'd started, and somebody threw a shoe at him, and he moved, and the shoe didn't hit him. Well, his moving was not motivated by the belief that a shoe was coming at George Bush. Right. It was motivated by something like shoe coming. Right. So we end up treating ourselves in the same way as other people, in the sense that I have a John Perry folder, and it's full of things. I was born in Nebraska and own a 2003 Kia or whatever the fuck it is, and but that self folder has a special relation to me, the person that has it. It's my self concept. So that's how it connects up with the notion of the self. I don't know about personal identity. I mean, it. Memory is one of the things what I call first person memory, and what Locke was talking about, although he doesn't make it very clear. First person memory is a self-informative, naturally self-informative way of knowing about what happened to someone in the past. If I remember someone eating whatever that shit I eat, honey baked oats or something for breakfast.
Honey bunches of oats.
Honey bunches of oats, right? I hope it's healthy because I kind of like it. So I remember eating honey bunches of oats. I might remember my wife eating honey bunches of oats, but the second thing is event memory. I remember seeing the event of her. The first is first person memory. So there is a connection between the self and the very kinds of memory, and also the kinds of anticipation or planning or intention. They all have this selfless. I know self is the right word, but this kind of odd characteristic that they are beliefs about a certain person, but they do not require us having anything in our mind that stands for that person, although eventually we will. So yeah, there's a connection. I've never quite written that up, but now it always seems about right to me. So yeah, so self knowledge is pretty unique, but I don't think unfathomable. Now, why do we care about ourselves more than other people? Well, lots of us don't, but there's a kind of a natural instinct to be very moved by pain that we see we're going to have, as opposed to pain that we see someone else is going to have. And then, I don't know, the philosophers I like, Hume and what's his name? Adam? No. Who was the economist? The guy invented
Adam Smith.
Adam, yeah. I get Bob Adams, Adam Smith, Adam and Eve. At my age, it all just blurs into one. But anyway, have to do with that, overcoming that thing, getting a sympathy that motivates you to treat other people with the prospect of pain, with as much or almost as much worry as you would if you were having the pain. What there is to ethics more than that, I've never been able to quite figure out. But I'm not saying there isn't a lot more to it, but that's all Hume can find, so it's probably all I can find. Plus what Elder Strawson said, there are certain things that people do where we really resent them. That seems important. But like the younger Strawson says, you really going to justify punishing people with that thin a anyway, I digress. So anyway, next question.